Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity.
Excellencies, distinguished invited guests from the press, ladies and gentlemen, allow me, on behalf of the African Group, to thank all of you for honoring our invitation to attend this press conference, which is being held as part of activities to mark the 2023 Africa Day event here in Vienna. The African Union has dubbed 2023 the year of the acceleration of the African Continental Free Trade Area implementation, with the primary goal of growing the nascent African Common Market. As you're aware, the Common Market comprises over 1.2 billion people with a combined GDP of over $3.1 trillion US. If COVID has taught us anything at all, it has taught us the need to diversify our economies. The Austrian government has shown a strong impetus in diversifying its economy. Africa is the closest to Europe, and anything that happens in Africa affects Europe. The Austrian government decided to initiate a strategy with Africa in order that we would be able to work hand in hand to enhance our economies. And so it initiated a strategy for Africa, and it's working with the African Group in Vienna to develop that strategy. On the heels of that African strategy, which is an evolution, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Federal Ministry of European and International Affairs of Austria decided to have this cooperation with us. And so we decided that in the margins of the Africa Day celebration, we would have a very important event, which is themed African Interactive, connecting to Africa past via smart media. The objective of today's press conference is therefore to disseminate information on the project that is aimed at contributing to reduce ignorance and prejudice towards African civilizations, as well as enabling young Africans, those in the diaspora and those at home, to establish deeper connection to their eminent contribution to world cultural heritage. As would soon be elaborated by the eminent Professor Titus Leber, the brain behind this project, Africa Interactive intends to use technology to gather, aggregate, and disseminate African cultural heritage and make this information accessible through smart media to young Africans. It is also intended to preserve our cultural heritage. The African Group is pleased to be associated with this project which has also received support from the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs. I'm glad to mention it quite right this time. It is therefore our expectation that through the press, information on the project would reach a much larger audience. It is now my privilege and honor to invite Professor Titus Leber to deliver a brief presentation on the project, to be followed by questions and answers session. I thank you for your attention.
Ambassador Johnson, I would very much like to thank you and the African group for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, thank you for coming this morning to join me for a brief introduction to what the project Africa Interactive is intended to be. The project actually started about 7 years ago when I was traveling for the first time more extensively to Africa. And I was really shocked when I was in Africa for two reasons. The first reason was that I realized how little and to which embarrassingly low level we, the rest of the world, are aware of Africa's civilizations, of Africa's great past. And the other point of concern was that I saw that young Africans are in danger to be disconnected from their own past, from their cultural roots. There's a huge Disneyification influence from Western media, which change young Africans' perspective on their own past with smart media, and not always in the best way. So please, without further ado, let me enter in the project and tell you a little bit more how I intend to bring more knowledge, more appreciations into everybody's pocket, because this project is supposed to bring Africa's civilizations, Africa's history, and Africa's great past into the pocket of everybody who has a smartphone, and many young Africans do, and many people in the diaspora internationally do.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellencies, Executive Director Ghada Waly, Ambassador Thun-Hohenstein, representing the Austrian Foreign Minister,
Deputy Director General Fatou Haidara of UNIDO, Deputy Director General Najat Mokhtar of IAEA, Director Hunan, Zhang, representing the Executive Director of the CTBTO. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
Africa is at a turning point in its history. As we gather here today to commemorate Africa Day, we need to celebrate the progress we have made as a continent.
the African Union has dubbed 2023 the year of the acceleration of the African Continental Free Trade Area implementation, with the primary goal of growing the nascent African common market. The AFCFTA represents more than just an agreement. It is a symbol of a new era of true African-led cooperation and enterprise, as well as a testament to the continent's unwavering commitment to regional integration and sustainable development.
This landmark agreement will enable us to harness our collective strength and resources, boost intra-African trade, and reduce our over-reliance on aid.
We therefore commend the Austrian government for its effort to develop stronger relations with Africa
and invite European businesses to pay closer attention to Africa. From Cape Town to Cairo, from Dakar to Djibouti, let us try to create an Africa that inspires the rest of the world. A continent of unrivaled beauty, unyielding strength, and undeniable greatness. On this note, and on behalf of the African Group, I declare the 2023 Africa Day celebration in Vienna open. I now invite Executive Director Ghada Waly, our own sister and a worthy daughter of the continent, to address us.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's an honor indeed. Distinguished Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, chers membres du groupe Afrique, je vous souhaite à tous la bienvenue aujourd'hui, où, comme j'ai appris lors de mon voyage au Kenya le mois dernier, qu'arrive-vous. Welcome to you all. I would like to thank the Chair of the Africa Group, Ambassador Philbert Johnson of Ghana, for bringing us together to celebrate the rich history and vibrant cultures of the African continent. And I thank him for his call to march forward to build and secure the future of Africa. There is much to be proud of. As the Secretary General said in his message this year, Africa's dynamism is unstoppable and its potential is breathtaking. I believe that to fully tap into this potential, we must tap into the continent's most valuable resource, its young people. With 60% of the continent's population under the age of 25, young Africans are the future. But they can only be the driving force of the continent's success if we invest in access to education for all young people. UNESCO data indicates that of the 244 million children out of school worldwide, 40% of them live in sub-Saharan Africa alone. Investing in their education is an utmost priority. Technology holds the key. With it, we can ensure quality education reaches every corner of the continent through online learning platforms, digital libraries, and virtual classrooms. We therefore need to invest in digital infrastructure to close the global digital divide. So I'm glad that you are launching the Africa Interactive project to promote the use of smart media among younger generations.
I now give the floor to Ambassador Thun-Hohenstein of the Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, the Ambassador Johnson, the Executive Director Waly, dear ambassadors, permanent representatives of the member states of the African Group, other excellencies, and of course also here Professor Leber, also at the podium. It is a great pleasure for me and honor to have been invited to this event on the occasion of the Africa Day. It is, as you know, also in May that African cultural and natural, tangible and intangible heritage is celebrated across the globe on the occasion of the African World Heritage Day proclaimed by UNESCO in 2015. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to stand here before you, to sit here before you, since Austria is currently re-evaluating its engagement in Africa and is preparing a national Africa strategy. My first diplomatic posting was in Africa, so I'm really very happy about the development. Its aim is to bundle and focus the efforts and expertise of relevant Austrian public and private institutions and actors engaged on the African continent. These include all federal ministries, but also institutions like the Federal Chamber of Commerce, the Austrian Development Agency, and the Austrian Development Bank, as well as other institutions. We all know that Africa is one of the most important partners for the European Union. The last EU-African Union Summit in February 2022 and its follow-up mechanism laid the basis for the deepening of our future cooperation. The aim are relations on an equal footing, mutual trust and responsibility. I think that is very important. Crucial for success is the proper implementation of the decisions made at this summit. Last month, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer paid official visits to Angola, Ghana, and Africa in general, during which he declared, since Africa is the continent of the future, we would like to intensify our foreign policy there. It is in this spirit that we see our participation in this year's Africa Day. We are grateful that you have chosen Professor Titus Leber to present his project, Africa Interactive, to which the Austrian Foreign Ministry extends its support. Professor Leber is a renowned specialist for large-scale digital cultural heritage projects. In my former life, in between diplomatic life as a museum director, I was working very much also on digital heritage projects and on the question how digital technology can help us to kind of bring our traditions also into the future. So I'm very well aware of what it means, and I congratulate you. The project Africa Interactive aims at the digital preservation and worldwide dissemination of African cultural heritage via smart media. It is a contribution to a global, deeper understanding and better acceptance of African culture in all its facets. By the same token, it should enable young users of smart communication devices throughout Africa and worldwide to discover and to remain connected to their own traditional, cultural, and spiritual roots. Using state-of-the-art digital technology, and it develops very fast, as we all know, to record and disseminate both the living as well as the traditional immaterial cultural heritage of Africa and its peoples, the project seeks to combine these assets into an active symbiosis with the African cultural heritage scattered around the world in collections and archives of all kinds, including in Austria. With this project, Professor Leber has anticipated for Africa an idea that has been presented to us by the European Commission in June last year, and which aims at creating a cloud for European cultural heritage, and then, I quote, at facilitating cooperation between researchers, curators, and museums professionals in order to safeguard cultural heritage and enable easy access to cultural content and allow future generations to enjoy it for years to come. Professor Leber's project, in addition to illustrating Austria's reinvigorated engagement for Africa, is also an expression of what Foreign Minister Alexander Schallenberg called a guiding principle of Austria's digital foreign policy, namely digital humanism. In a joint declaration of end of June 2021, the foreign ministers of Austria, Czech Republic, and Slovakia acknowledged that digital humanism empowers the world of art, philosophy, and the humanities to explore what it means to be a human being in the digital age. So digital humanism, a concept which is at the root of a movement which originated in 2019 in Vienna, or even earlier at the museum I was director of, is to be understood as the prudent pursuit of supporting people through digital technologies, especially AI, and protecting people from adverse effects of these technologies. It stands for the claim to describe and analyze the complex interplay between digital technology and humans, but above all for the attempt to influence this interplay in favor of a society that is fully committed to human rights. Africa Interactive certainly qualifies as a very relevant project in this regard, and talks have already started here between Professor Leber and our embassy in Addis Ababa. One last word on how this project fits into Austrian foreign policy. When I started as a Director General for International Cultural Relations at the Foreign Ministry, I launched an initiative called Imagine Arts and Ideas. Its aspiration is to overcome our current crisis of imagination through artistic vision, inspiring ideas, and a new culture of dialogue between arts and sciences, but also involving business. The arts can reach not only people's minds, but also their hearts, and have a strong emotional impact. The general topic of this initiative is dignity, and is meant to build a bridge between Western countries and other countries for debating the big questions of our times relating to the dignity of humans and of nature and its other species. It is my hope that this year's Africa Day is the beginning of regular cultural cooperation between the Austrian Foreign Ministry and the member states of the African Union, revolving around the theme of dignity, including digital dignity and the dimensions of a regenerative digital humanism. I am convinced that it is especially through culture that we can realize how much we all do participate in the same human adventure. Austria aspires to continue to support the celebration of Africa's strong cultural identity, common heritage, values and ethics as laid down in the African Union's Agenda 2063. We would be very proud if Austria, and especially this project and Professor Leber, could assist in Africa's cultural renaissance. Regenerative sustainability is our joint future, and we can realize this vision only through dialogue and cooperation. Thank you.
This is the time we've been waiting for, and let me now invite Professor Leber to make a short presentation of the Africa Interactive, a project initiated and developed by himself with the support of the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs and the cooperation of the Vienna-based Africa Group. This project preceded work on the development of the Austrian Africa strategy by the government of Austria. Professor Leber, we would be grateful if you could make it punchy and let your audience salivate. Thank you. You have the floor.
Ambassador Johnson, Excellencies, Directors Generals, Deputy Generals, ladies and gentlemen, it's such an honor today to be here and to be invited today to present you my project Africa Interactive, which is supposed to gather and disseminate the cultural heritage of Africa and to make it accessible to anybody who has a smart device in his pocket. They could access it in an easy way and navigate through the cultural heritage of Africa. We will use state-of-the-art technology, and we will begin, obviously, on the continent. The project is based on 4 different pillars. The first one I suggest, because the living patrimony of Africa is very, very rapidly vanishing, to establish in Africa rapid intervention crews who can go wherever there is a celebration, a rite, something happening in Africa. Also record the knowledge of the elders. Every elder who dies in Africa is a library getting lost. So there's a great need to record this oral heritage, and this is the first pillar. The second pillar is to bring back to Africa whatever is disseminated of your rich, rich cultural heritage in museums and collections all over the world. But let's start to already virtually restitute whatever is disseminated to make people aware and to make young people proud of what Africa has contributed to the world cultural heritage. The third pillar is to connect, obviously, with big archives, photographers who over the last century have audiovisually recorded a lot of the patrimony which is already lost, and bring them into the project. And the fourth pillar is to bring in scholars, universities, the whole knowledge gathered in the internet, and bring all this in the reach of every young internaut who can travel from his pocket on his smartphone through this rich heritage of Africa. In the old times, people in Africa used to gather around the fire, and the elders would pass on orally the rich tradition. In the new times, the spark is an electric spark, and we can bring and fix all this old knowledge onto smartphones, onto smart devices, and pass it on. How to navigate this rich heritage? There is a myth in Ghana that a spider trickster named Anansi went to the sun god and stole from him all stories of the world, and namely all stories of Africa, and brought them to humanity. So what did the spider do? The spider built web of stories. And shouldn't we be proud here in this circle that Africa anticipated with this web of wisdom the internet by probably several hundred years, maybe millenniums of years. So I use this metaphor of the spider web to make people navigate through this rich heritage, namely also by using glass beads. Glass beads play a very important role in many African countries, and there are many different ways to navigate this heritage. So every glass bead on my spider web will be a different entry point. And by touchscreen and by touching these different glass beads, you will be able to navigate in many different ways through this heritage. So let me show you a few ways on how we can navigate. Obviously, we should start with the people of Africa. And whether they come from the far east of the continent, whether they are modern young people, traditional old cultures, people from the north, from the desert, ecstatic dancers from Western Africa or Central Africa, no matter from where they come, we should learn to get to Africa through its peoples by knowing better their traditions, their rights, their history, and we can enter in an interactive way right into Yoruba culture, just an example, obviously. Another way to travel the continent is by its great traditional commercial roads, the rivers and the caravan roads. And we can touch any of the rivers, this whole thing will be touchscreen. And there we are, flying along with a drone, the major rivers. And if we see, like here in the center, a point which could be possibly of interest, we touch it, we are there instantly, in this case in Mali, from where we can go to an overview of the main pillars which constituted the key points and the key events marking a country, a civilization. So the idea is really to build a large number of micro-projects, we call them micro-projects, which give you a first entrance to the key elements which constitute each cultural circle. Like in this case, for instance, for Mali, the famous Emperor Mansa Musa, who crossed the Sahara on his pilgrimage to Mecca, the richest man of all times, who went out with caravans, 60,000 people in the Middle Ages to cross the Sahara. From here we can go to African history. Egyptian civilization played obviously a very, very important role, as did Meroe with its pyramids. Not to forget the eminent African empires in the Middle Ages, when Europe was still in the dark ages of the Middle Ages, and there will be a possibility to travel through these different kingdoms. But most importantly, Africa has heroes. Why do we need Superman? Why do we need a Disneyification in Africa when Africa has its own heroes and should express their stories in Africa's own language and through their own view? Especially also at the great women who shaped Africa's history. There's a large number of great empresses, queens, liberation fighters from all parts, from Burkina Faso, from Angola, from Ghana, who were important women who really shaped, very importantly, history. A very important way to navigate the continent is to do by countries. Many people in the Western world don't even know where the countries are. They have never heard the names, they don't know the flags, they don't know the history. So you will have an interactive way to navigate through the continent and then again come to the country, get to the micro-projects which point you directly to the main pillars which have constituted the history of the continent. I've been working a lot in Senegal, for instance. For each country, I developed a specific navigation metaphor. In Senegal, it's the baobab tree, which looks like a neuron and which allows you again, to navigate the history, the museums, and so on. Now, this is the way how we normally walk through an African museum today. I know there are many new museums, but the way I suggest to do it is to go to the objects and then point right away to whatever is the context of the object and bring it together with the living history. So you will have immediately the possibility to connect artifacts and living cultural heritage. Another very interesting example, the initiation rites in Burkina Faso, Les Mascafeuilles, young men who become initiated get dressed in the forest. Very rare footage I was able to get my hands on, how the initiated are dressed up in the sacred forest and then walk to the city and bring their ancient secret knowledge to society. Even more fascinating, these are the masques de nuit, the masks of the night. Now, I want you to look at these parallels. We just saw this mask dance. Here's a picture from Cocteau's The Testament d'Orphée. We can see who stole from whom. Another important museum in Africa is the new Museum of Black Civilizations in Dakar, which has a remarkable collection of bronzes from Benin. And I asked him, wouldn't it be nice to go from your museum to all the different collections of Benin bronzes around the world? Within one fingertip, we're in Vienna, and can see from here not only the bronzes of Benin, but go into the whole civilization. Here I would like to open a very quick parenthesis on the question of restitution. It's a very hot discussion today, and we had in Vienna the chance a few months ago to receive Achille Mbembe. He is quoted to be one of the fathers of the concept of restitution. And when he saw the program of Africa Interactive, he went right on the stage and said he considers virtual restitution as important and equally important as physical restitution. Both should be complementary. It's very important to use these possibilities we have now in 3D to make these treasuries worldwide accessible. This is an example of the quality by which we can catch today African artifacts in 3D and make it visible from all sides, from all parts, enter into it, and just shows you to which extent we can seize it in quality here. And that brings me kind of to a quick second part. COVID time, no possibility to travel to Africa, but I took advantage of this period to gather the material of Africa in Austrian collections, and there's a lot of hidden treasures in private collections, namely, for instance, the Museum Jaunik in Carinthia, which has one of the richest Ghanaian gold collections in the world, and it will just show you how you can navigate through these riches of Ghana's and the Akan civilization by visiting virtually this museum. You will be able to make your choice to any object by pointing of it. And then, very important, you will have two different ways to explore objects, either by looking at the conventional information or going to Anansi to the spider and then network the whole content with whatever is relevant. And here we are back to the living heritage of Ghana in this case. We can go again back to the country, to the heritage background. And this is very important. We talk a lot today from the Internet of Things. But if we consider, instead of fridges or cars or light in a room, African objects to be intelligent things loaded with a lot of connectivity, we could build up very, very rich systems of understanding, of connecting, and build an internet of smart interconnections, which brings us obviously to the metaverse, where young people will love to navigate in 3D, and where they will enjoy in 3D to go through the African cultural heritage. A few other examples of African collections. Mr. Zhang, who is with us, has a rich collection. He has crossed 30 times the Sahara. Downstairs in the rotunda, you will see some of his objects. And you can see again the fantastic quality in 3D, seeing these hidden treasures, which normally not many people can see. Steppage collection. Museum Humanum. A very interesting thing is, I call this ensemble of gathered objects AI, Africa Interactive. But just consider, with the exponential growth of these seized and recorded objects, what this will mean in terms of big data for the field of artificial intelligence. So imagine the power of Africa Interactive, of all this material gathered, multiplied by the power of artificial intelligence. This will do an immense step forward in terms of better understanding, of better accessing the cultural past of the continent, and it will bring us to an eye-to-eye level where people from abroad will learn to better appreciate Africa, where young people from Africa will learn better to appreciate their own contribution to the world cultural heritage. So this will go to AI times 3, which is Africa Interactive times artificial intelligence times African identity. And let me close on a more poetic note. In the European civilizations, we had the 9 muses which inspired the arts and the sciences, but it seems that one muse was missing, the one of the digital media. And so my suggestion would be, why shouldn't she come from Africa? And the name I would give to her is Digitalia, and I hope the 10th muse will come from the African continent. And I would like to wish very, very happy birthday. Allow me to say to my brothers and sisters from Africa, happy birthday.
I now have the privilege and honor to invite a precious daughter of the soil, Deputy Director General Fatou Haidara of UNIDO, to address us.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to address you on behalf of the Director General of UNIDO, and I'm very happy and very proud to personally join you as you commemorate Africa Day. First of all, I would like to commend the Africa Group for organizing this event. This year, the observation of Africa Day coincides with the 60th anniversary of the Organization of African Unity and its successor, the African Union. Our celebration today is particularly significant since the African Union designated the year 2023 as the year of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. With a marketplace of at least $3.4 trillion and a consumer base of 1.4 billion people, the African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to promote value addition, industrialization, economic diversification, and develop local and regional value chains. The agreement holds also a significant potential to promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization through economies of scale and to foster a more competitive manufacturing sector. I would say that AFCFTA is a game changer for Africa's future growth and development. As the lead organization implementing the third industrial development decade for Africa, IDDA 3, UNIDO maintains its focus on promoting inclusive and sustainable industrial development in Africa. We have been working closely with our partners across the UN system, with the regional economic communities, and at the local level to support the African Continental Free Trade Area. UNIDO has pursued broad partnerships to advance the industrialization pillar of the African Union Agenda 2063. Together with its trade, investment, and infrastructure pillars. The recent African Union Summit on industrialization and economic diversification in Niger galvanized the continent's push forward towards industrialization. And as a co-organizer, UNIDO, together with our international partners, is committed to implementing the outcome of the summit. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the coming month, we will be also launching a new strategy for Africa, placing productivity, enhancing growth, regional integration, and a people-centered approach at the forefront of our efforts towards achieving the 2030 Agenda and the Agenda 2063. Partnerships are key to achieving sustainable and inclusive economic, industrial, and social development in Africa. As always, UNIDO remains ready to strengthen existing partnerships and create new ones wherever needed. Together, we have the means and the dedication to pursue lasting change. Let us look ahead to the next 40 years and make sure they are marked by progress, innovation, prosperity, and peace. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
I thank Deputy Director General Fatou Haidara for that insightful remarks. I now give the floor to the Deputy Director General Najat Mokhtar of IAEA, another valuable and passionate African. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ambassador Johnson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the IAEA, Director General, Mr. Rafael Mariano Grossi, it's an honor for me to address you on this remarkable day as we reflect on the immense potential that lies within Africa and the crucial role that nuclear science and technology play in shaping its future. Africa, with its vast resources, diverse and young population, has always been a land of great opportunities. Science and technology, including nuclear technology, have emerged as powerful catalysts for change, enabling Africa to leapfrog traditional development barriers. They have the potential to transform various sectors, including agriculture, healthcare, energy, and addressing challenges of climate change, for example. On this African Day, let us celebrate the spirit of innovation, resilience, and determination to define Africa. Let us recognize the transformative power of nuclear science and technology and commit ourselves to harnessing their potential for the benefit of all Africans, we can build a prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable Africa that we want, to become the lighthouse of progress and inspiration for the world. I congratulate you for this African Day, and I congratulate all my fellow African friends here and across the continents. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Deputy Director General Najat Mokhtar once again for her delivery. I now have the honor to give the floor to Director Hunan, Zhang, representing the Executive Director of the CTBTO. Please, you have the floor.
Excellencies, I would like to congratulate the Africa Group in Vienna for hosting this event to commemorate Africa Day. This yearly event provides an opportunity to celebrate a great continent, and the CTBTO is pleased to join you. I thank the group, in particular its chair, Ambassador Johnson of Ghana, for the invitation, as well as for our close collaboration. Today, we celebrate to the African continent, its people, and its culture, and reflect on the continent's contributions to international peace and security, including the CTBTO. 51 of our 186 state signatories are from Africa. Indeed, on the first day the CTBT opened for signature, African states were among the first to sign, demonstrating early and clearly that the continent strongly supported the treaty. Additionally, African states host 42 of IMS facilities. The day-to-day work of delivering our verification regime is taking place across the continent. I would like to congratulate the group once more as we celebrate this year, in particular, the launching of Africa Interactive, which aims to use state-of-the-art technology to gather, aggregate, and disseminate information pertinent to the preservation of Africa's cultural heritage via smart media to young Africans. Africa is a very useful continent with almost 60% of the people under the age of 25. I can understand well why projects targeting this demographic are so vitally important. I welcome that 228 of the 1,353 members of the CTBT Youth Group are from Africa, and it's exciting to see young people working hard to promote the objectives of our treaty and take it forward. Finally, I look forward to continuing to work with the Africa Group in support of the objectives of the CTBT. I thank you.